13 after 8 exactly. Welcome back. This is News and Views right here on Salam Media. And of course, I think it is only appropriate that we open up the show this morning to discuss Sona. Obviously, we do know that at 2 o'clock today, there is going to be, from today and tomorrow, obviously, there's going to be a lot of input into the president's Sona address. We're going to try and unpack a few of the very critical or important issues that were raised in Sona with Sandile Swana, who is a political analyst. So I actually wasn't waiting with bated breath, I must be quite honest. But let's hear what Sandile has to say and reaction regarding South Africa, the general public, obviously, and other political parties. Sandile, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you to your listeners.
Okay, I know that Sona was probably met with lots of mixed reaction. I'm one of those people who felt it was same old, same old, same old. President Cyril Ramaphosa has really just been regurgitating what he has been saying to us and promising to us over the past few years. Have I missed something? Or is it now the crucial time as far as his political career is concerned, if he does not deliver, as he's promised over the past few years, that this will be the end of his term as a government of South Africa? Or do you think there's probably something happening behind the scenes? Is he possibly putting party before the country?
Thank you so much, Julie. First of all, when the ANC put Cyril Ramaphosa into the position of deputy president in 2012, basically they promised us that the economy, because of the coming of Ramaphosa, would be on steroids. It would exhibit superior performance. Till today, we are waiting for that superior performance. It has not happened. So when you say that he's been repeating promises, it is not so much the repeating of promises, more than the issue that previous promises were not met. So there has been no progress. Some of the issues that can be raised that we are seeing now, relative to his career and so on and so forth, we've seen a rapid deterioration of the security of the nation in South Africa. And as that was happening with his knowledge, he had prior knowledge because he had been given a report by Sidney Muhammad in 2018 about that.
Sure.
He has then now centralized security in his office, in the president. We've seen a continuing failure towards small business and the ease of doing business in South Africa. Through the appointment of Sipho Nkosi, we're seeing the centralization, the steady centralization of the economy and its performance in the presidency. Not that it's a president who on his own has got any record of superior performance. The performance since 2012 of the deputy president Ramaphosa and the president Ramaphosa has been dismal. However, concerning his career, I think it's safe to be able to get another term, because the presidency is not going to be on merit. It is going to be a negotiation between the various factions, more especially the RT faction and the CR22 faction. It will be a negotiated presidency.
Okay, you talk about the RET faction and the CR22. I refer to it as the CR17. Is it one and the same thing? Just clarify that for us. What sort of negotiation will they go into? And then the other thing, I also want you to touch on the fact that every time there was a Sona address or a briefing of some form as far as the president is concerned, we've been promised, I think in 2018, 1 million jobs were promised. And then in 2019, a further X amount of jobs were promised. We've been made these promises all along. Nothing has materialized. And we can attribute the high crime levels in the country to the low employment or unemployment rates in the country. We can also attribute directly the uprising or the xenophobic tendencies to immigrants because of the high unemployment issues. So how do we move forward? How do we make our president accountable? Or is there way too much friction between the RET faction and the CR17 or the CR22 as you're referring to?
CR22, the CR stands for Cyril Ramaphosa 22, the year 22. The year 2022 is the year when the ANC will elect its new president and its new National Executive Committee and the new top six. So they usually form themselves into competing groups, if you like, or competing slates. So the previous one was CR17, and it was only because the year was 2017. CR22 is because the year is 2022.
Okay.
Now, the issue that we're dealing with here is that since the Polokwane conference and since the global financial crisis of 2008, the South African economy, under the leadership of the African National Congress, went on a decisive downward trend. And that downward trend worsened when Cyril Ramaphosa became a president. So the issue of poor performance under the African National Congress is a culture, it's a norm, it's what they do. That's the track record. If you look at the statistics from the Reserve Bank, statistics from the State SA, statistics from National Treasury, the track record of poor performance is there, it's a trend. Now, the question of is there anything that we can do to actually create poor performance? The most straightforward, create correct performance or high level of performance. The most straightforward thing to do would have been to actually elect a government that is not an ANC government. That is the most straightforward thing to do. On the issue of jobs, let me say the last statement I heard from COSATU was that they were saying at this point in time, there's about 12.5 million people who are unemployed. In my calculation, it shows me that per annum, you need to create new jobs that were not there before. New businesses with new jobs, 2.6 per year. If 2.6 million jobs per year that you need. So you cannot be saying I'll create 1 million jobs per year. You cannot say I'll create 130,000 jobs a year. The actual number is 2.6 or more per year because of the amount of backlog that is there and the amount of new entrants into the job market. And indeed, Tito Mboweni started, the former finance minister, started the issue of targeting foreigners, especially foreign Africans who are working in South Africa, by stating that since he came in 1990, the number of Africans who are working in South African restaurants has escalated to almost 100% by now, without checking with State SA. And he was provoking xenophobia against foreigners in South Africa. And State SA has eventually produced a report, which was already in existence at the time Tito Mboweni made the statement, that the number of foreigners here that are affected is less than 6.5%. And that number is less than a third of the number in the USA or in the UK. So there's nothing abnormal about the number of foreigners that we have here. What we do have is a government that does not know how to provide economic development, how to provide economic leadership. And the so-called red tape that they are talking about, it is a red tape that is not just red tape, but it has the effect of creating serious infrastructure for extracting bribes from small businesses, for tenders and for payment of the outstanding invoices.
Do you believe it's going to be effective at all? This whole red tape and this new position that's been created?
The position that is being created cannot be effective because you need legal power. For instance, if you are sitting in the presidency, what are you going to do to make sure that the municipality, Muzahil and Lusigisigi in the Eastern Cape, pays their suppliers on time? or the provincial government of the Eastern Cape or the provincial, because those people are governed by the law, and what they do is within the law themselves. So you can't jump in from outside of the framework of that governs them and jump into where they are and say, I'm going to make you to perform. So if there are people there who are not performing, you actually need to facilitate the movement of those people out of the state so that people who perform actually do their jobs. So the relevant premiers, the relevant ministers need to remove non-performers from the state themselves. You don't need to create any office in the presidency for that. You just need to take up a systematic process. And lastly, let me add that one of the reasons why a lot of theft of money and also the frustration of SMMEs is that since quite some time now, maybe 8 years now at least, that the office of the chief procurement officer was established and determined what must be done to correct the problems in the procurement of the state. And all they did was to get rid of Kenneth Brown, who was the chief procurement at that time, and not replace it. So there is a person who could play a very serious role from National Treasury, properly empowered to address some of these things that we're talking about.
Finally, what else jumps out at you as far as SONA is concerned? And of course, in terms of corruption and trying to recoup all of the monies, I've been hearing things about where there are efforts in place to try and, very especially with the PPE scandals by the health department and the Department of Education, where they're doing everything they possibly can to recoup those monies that was stolen, so to speak. But going forward, is that just a drop in the pan? How much more effort is going to be needed to try and stop corruption, tenderpreneurship, and all of the other corrupt activities that is absolutely rampant within government circles?
Before I come to the issue of corruption, with your kind permission, let me say that one of the issues that jumped out of the SONA is the issue of power supply, electricity power supply. All the statements of all the efforts that the president said he's going to be busy with. As I sit here today, I do not know whether load shedding is going to end in December 2022, December 2023, December 2024, or December 2030. All I know is that there's a list of things that the president is doing. As to what their effect relative to the actual problem we have of load shedding, we still don't know. So that makes the statement just a bit of a propaganda statement more than a statement of careful, decisive planning to solve a particular problem within a limited time frame successfully. On the issue of corruption, as you probably read the weekend papers, police being arrested in drug dealing by taxi drivers, other soldiers and police officers being arrested in cash heist and so on. So the issue here is that corruption is continuing right now as we speak. And the solution to corruption is not so much to be excited about the Zondo report or any other report. It is about re-establishing law and order in South Africa and making sure you have a competent police force that is preventing crime every day, that is investigating crime, detecting crime, and preparing dockets for prosecution, and a prosecution authority that is competent to prosecute all the cases that come before it. So that is what needs to be happening here. On the activities on the outcomes of the Zondo Commission and other reports of a similar nature, the opposition parties and civil society have got to wake up and stand up and aggressively pursue that all those cases are properly prosecuted. And I have confidence that that is going to.
Well, I'm glad that you are confident. I can't say that I share your enthusiasm as far as this is concerned. because really we are a broken country right now. Or I think it wouldn't be amiss if I said we are a country on fire. And if something doesn't happen and happens soon enough, I just wonder where and how all this will end. But I'd just like to backtrack a bit regarding the power issues. We've been told for a while that we should be very we should be conservative in our power utilization. We should be responsible citizens as far as power utilization is concerned. One of the ways we can do that, and lots of people have tried doing that, is to go the solar system, to go the solar route. Those people who can afford it. We are now hearing that NERSA is want to penalize those people who's wanting to come off the grid. So here we think we're helping the government, we're helping Eskom, we're helping other power suppliers by going off the grid, but at the same time, NERSA comes along and is suggesting that those people that go off the grid are going to be very heavily penalized.
Yes, that is the sign of a very confused government. The issue of power should ideally not involve residents, homes, the people's homes, because people's homes use a very small percentage of the power that comes out of Eskom, especially. And most of the power in South Africa comes out of Eskom anyways. Eskom and power is one and the same thing. The problem we actually have is that we don't have power to support our business, enough electricity power, consistent electricity power from there. So the efforts by householders are noble, but actually largely irrelevant to the question at hand. It therefore pains me as well to see NERSA and Eskom and the current government, elected government, penalizing citizens who are trying to secure their own power supply and to reduce their offtake from the national grid and power supply.
Sandile, let me come in here. You saying that we as home consumers or residents utilize a very small amount of the power generated by Eskom. And I know we're digressing here from Sona, but this is part and parcel of what we're sitting with in the country. And yet we are the first and hardest hit when there are rolling blackouts. How do you equate the two?
You see, these are big questions that you are asking me, because it's the concept. The question is, what concept do they have of a citizen? This government, when they say you are a citizen, well, how do they see you? Because, you know, I'll use a silly example, probably an undesirable example, if you like, but at least on their propaganda, the Americans will tell you that if one citizen of America is in trouble somewhere, the whole US Army will go out there and retrieve that citizen. That's how they look at an American citizen. In South Africa, you could be kidnapped in Gabon or kidnapped anywhere. At the end of the day, you'll be lucky to escape with your life, because we don't have a government that is 100% behind us to protect us from anything. So the same thing happens with power supply. Power supply in an economy and a community like a nation like South Africa is a basic human right. It should be there, especially if you are paying for it anyway. But our government does not look at what the citizen must get. Those businesses that are there, that are also being deprived of electricity, by the way, are owned by South African citizens, a number of them. So they are depriving you of your economic rights, depriving you of your rights at home by denying you. So I studied and finished all my studies without any power shortages. Nothing, absolutely nothing. My children are studying under power outages. They have to scheme and plan and do all sorts of things in order to study.
Okay, we're running out of time. I could sit here talking to you all day long, unpacking Sona and the way forward for South Africans. give us a glimmer of hope. I'm a cynical and outright cynical as far as our government is concerned. But perhaps you as a political analyst can give us a glimmer of hope in moving forward as South Africa regarding Sona.
The first thing that I will say, because your lack of hope, I think, comes from somewhere else, not just Sona. You must remember that we've lived in South Africa, a good number of us, for longer than the ANC has been in government. In other words, the years that I've spent outside of an ANC government are more than the years that I've spent under an ANC government. So the ANC government is not a permanent feature in South Africa. It is actually a new phenomenon. So let's understand that. Secondly, therefore, we have to understand that out of the actions of citizens, civil society, and so on and so forth, the government itself can be removed from power. And if needs be, it must be removed on an urgent basis so that people who are more interested in the quality of life of the citizens can do that. I live in Gauteng, and I can tell you now that I'm very pleased that in the city in which I live, we're under a coalition government that has got nothing to do with the ANC. And I'm happy with the work that is being done here. And I want to believe, if you project the numbers, that in 2024, the ANC will be removed out of Gauteng and maybe elsewhere like KZN and so on and so forth. Because the problems that were conflating, the national problems and the ANC problems, we are trying to say that it's one. So you must distinguish the jockey and the horse. Our horse is good, but the jockey is bad. Let's get a good jockey.
Okay, I'm glad that you are so very hopeful, and you are right. My cynicism comes from the whole state capture drama that has been playing out in this country for the past so many years. My cynicism comes from the fact that so many of our youth are helpless and hopeless because of the high unemployment rate. And that talks directly to corruption in our country, in our government. And that is why I am so cynical and don't hold up too much hope for the future. But I appreciate what you've shared with us this morning. Undoubtedly, you do offer hope. And let me always think about that when I feel really low and gloomy, and when I am approached by an unemployed youth who is looking for a handout or is looking for a job. Let me think about what you said and let that give me hope. We just have to be hopeful. You are right. We have to talk with you again the next time around. Let's unpack RET. But wonderful talking with you this morning.
Thank you so much, Julie.
That was Sandile Swana, a political analyst, trying to unpack Sona and trying to address my cynicism regarding the current government. It is exactly 8:36.